Oh. Well, good morning, and well, it's the morning of Wednesday, 9th of May, 2019, and gosh, it's chilly, it's wet, there's a real bite in the air, it feels like February. Now, this global warming stuff has a lot to answer for, but more about that in a little while. Anyway, I decided to let everybody have a lie-in, including me, on Monday, so bank holiday, and unfortunately, obviously, the weather wasn't as good as we'd enjoyed over Easter, but nonetheless, I hope you got a good bit of respite. Well, since then, of course, we have had the local elections, and it's interesting to see the commentators, and it's also interesting to see how the Remainers, those who want to stay within the EU, choose to interpret those results. But this morning I'm gonna burst your bubble big time. So let's take a quick summary of the results from those local elections, and I'm pleased to say, and it wasn't exactly rocket science, but the Tories, and to a bit of a lesser extent the Labour Party, got seriously spanked. And why is that? Because pretty much everybody in the country who wants to get out of the EU knows fine well that the two main parties have effectively contrived to do everything they possibly can to keep the UK in the EU. And that's not what Britain voted for. We were told, of course, that it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and as I have expressed many times, I believe that the vote was fudged on the basis that the vote to leave was much greater than the 52% that was the official result. And one of the reasons that there is a reluctance in some Remain quarters for a second referendum is they sense that if there was a second referendum, that the determination to get out of the clutches of the EU would be even greater. Well, Theresa May must have the skin of a rhino or the intellect of literally a gnat, because she hangs on in there and there is no compulsion within her party, it seems, to get rid of this dead duck leader. She was a dead duck from the word go, and I think we pretty much knew that she was put in there as a safe pair of hands to try to keep the UK in the EU. But of course, in the meantime, she's effectively undermined the grip that the Tories had right across the country at all levels of politics. So here was the results. The Tories, they ended up still with the largest number of councillors, which is really a bit surprising, but anyway, 3,564, which was a loss of 1,330 councillors, 1,330 seats. And I know that some of those councillors were in tears, and what was perhaps even more shocking was some of those career councillors and leaders of councils who got bounced out. A very clear message from the electorate. But the Labour Party didn't come out unscathed, and this was primarily because Jeremy Corbyn has completely lost his bottle. After 35 years, or whatever it is, in politics, he completely miscalculated the will of the nation, and first of all, succumbing to all the fake anti-Semitism accusations. And by the way, these are not unique in the UK. It's going on all around the world, particularly in the developed world, in an attempt to effectively shut down any kind of debate, not just the anti-Semitic debate, but that is actually on point to shut down freedom of expression. So Jeremy didn't exactly handle that particularly well, and when he gave in to the pressure from elements within his party to embrace a second referendum, then that was it. He completely destroyed any hope that the Labour Party had of taking over the mantle from the Tories. So what happened in the local elections? Well, people didn't want to vote for the Tories and they didn't want to vote for Labour. So what options did they have? Well, primarily they had the options of Lib Dem, Green or Independents. And in some cases, they only had the option of Lib Dem. So given the opportunity to give the finger to the Tories and Labour, then they voted Lib Dem. But they certainly didn't vote Lib Dem, or many didn't vote Lib Dem, because they want to remain in the EU. It was a protest vote against the Tories and the Labour Party. The Greens ended up with 265 councillors, which is an increase of 194. By the way, I forgot to mention the Lib Dems ended up with 1,351, which is an increase of 704. So it's quite easy to see why the Lib Dems and the Greens were absolutely ecstatic at the result. And of course, the immediate interpretation that Britain was showing that it really wants to remain in the EU. No, it doesn't. And the independents, where they were standing, and the minority parties, they ended up with 1,178 councillors, and that's an increase of 661 seats. But here's my prediction for the EU elections on the 23rd of May. So basically, I think, what's that? That's 2 weeks tomorrow. So here's the prediction. UKIP have effectively destroyed themselves, and I won't go into the detail. You can work that one out for yourselves. I'm really quite sure of that. But they ended up with 31 councillors, which is a loss of 145. So UKIP are a spent force, certainly when it comes to local politics. But what's going to happen on May 23rd? Well, obviously, Nigel Farage has jumped back into the fray. And, unfortunately, of course, this is a guy who jumped ship as soon as the result of the referendum was announced nearly 3 years ago. But he's back into the fray, and it does look like the Brexit Party is going to get a massive vote. So my prediction is that the Brexit Party are going to probably clean up at the European elections. There'll be, the usual smattering of a few Greens, a few Tories, a few Labour, but the message from the country is going to be Brexit. At local level, it doesn't really matter, and people vote for the candidates who they hope will do the best for their local community. But at national and EU level, it's a completely different ball game. Now, I'm not advocating the Brexit Party. There are definitely some concerns, serious concerns, that I harbour about the motivation of Farage jumping in here. Certainly real opportunist, no doubt about that. But, if there was a player who can pull together the Brexit vote, it is certainly Farage. And I say, unfortunately, for multiple reasons, UKIP is a spent force. So, all to play for. The other thing that I should mention is that in the local elections, it is reported that there was something in the region of nearly 100,000 spoilt papers. And the most common comment written on the spoilt paper was Brexit means Brexit. Now, that is a remarkable number of spoilt papers across the country. In the EU elections, hopefully, people who feel they can vote will do the right thing and vote for the candidate that they feel is going to drive the UK out of the EU. But, if you feel that it's way beyond your principles to vote, then take the opportunity to go down to the polling station and register your displeasure at the ongoing system. So that's it for elections for the moment. Tomorrow, Mark Steele is back in court. He will have legal representation as he resists Gateshead Council's attempt to jail him for allegedly breaching the terms of the injunction applied by Judge Nolan last year. So unfortunately I can't be there because obviously it's the immediate run-up to the AV10 conference. But if you can get along to Newcastle tomorrow, then please do go and support Mark. Now, the case tomorrow is back at the Moot Hall. This is a beautiful building. It's almost a film set type courtroom, and so well worth going along just to sit in and embrace that environment, if you like that sort of thing. Anyway, it's Moot Hall, Crown Court. There's parking right outside if you get there early enough, and the postcode is NE1 1RQ. So obviously I shall be getting a feed throughout the day, and let's hope that whomever is presiding tomorrow does the right thing and basically tells Gateshead Council to do one, and actually instructs them to respond appropriately and in full to not just Mark's but all the Freedom of Information requests that are being submitted regarding the 5G rollout in the northeast. So that's tomorrow. And then of course Friday sees the start of the Alternative View conference. This is the 10th Alternative View conference, so funnily enough that's why it's called AV10. It's going to be, without any shadow of doubt, the best attended AV event to date. There are a few day tickets left. In fact, we've jigged a bit the layout of the room to be able to get some extra seats in there. So there's still a few day tickets left. Unfortunately, of course, the residential tickets were sold out 3 months ago. So if you want to come along, it's the Hallwood House Hotel just outside Milton Keynes, and the conference itself will start at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's 3 days, 2 full days of presentations from the likes of Brian Gerrish, Patrick Henningsen, Gemro Doherty, Mads Palsvik, the Danish banker turned politician who has seen the light, which apparently is an insult in Denmark, I'm told. But anyway, so Mark Steele will be hopefully joining us, assuming he's still walking free. Mark Steele will be joining us on Monday, and in fact on Monday morning we'll be focusing on the issue of 5G and discussing the way to resist this abomination at every level, because of course it's being rolled out at a phenomenal rate of knots. So it looks like my studio audience has made its way up the field to come join me. So morning guys. So if you can't get to AV, then for the first time we are experimenting with live stream. So we have a very, very professional live stream set up, so you can watch from the comfort of your own home, because the weather apparently is not going to be that great. And so if you go to the Alternative View, www.alternativeview.co.uk, you can see the live stream sign up there. Now at the moment the only live stream opportunity is a full weekend ticket, but from midnight on Friday you will be able to purchase a pay-per-view pass for each day. So after midnight on Friday you can purchase a day pass for Saturday, and likewise for Sunday and Monday. And let me tell you, there are going to be some very, very powerful presentations, and one of the presentations that I'm really, really looking forward to is David Dubine, who's coming in from Taiwan, and he's going to be discussing his insights into what's happening with the climate. And let me tell you, it's not related to anthropogenic climate change. He's going to be presenting his hypothesis with a phenomenal amount of evidence to support his hypothesis. And in fact, this cold weather that we're experiencing right now falls right in with his prediction of where we're heading. So obviously, David is aware of what's been going on in the UK with the Extinction Rebellion, and this is where the law of unintended consequences is really kicking in, because there's no question that Extinction Rebellion, which has a very, very interesting background, and I implore you to do your own research, and in particular the work of Cory Morningstar. But Extinction Rebellion, having brought the issue of climate change to the fore of consciousness across the country, it's encouraged people to do their own research. And more people are starting to realise that the whole element of anthropogenic climate change is a political construct. They are researching, they are finding the documentation from the 1950s, from the 1960s, from the 1970s, 80s and 90s, where think tanks are using climate change as a threat. And particularly in the 90s, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, then climate change was regarded as the new enemy to unite us, humanity being the enemy of itself. And the reason I make this observation is because of the conversations and email exchanges I've had over the last few days. And indeed, you know, I have people say, you know, for the last 20 years, they've bought into the climate change or global warming construct. But now they've actually taken the time, dug a little bit deeper, looked at the evidence and the information that is there for all to see. They have realized that they have been hoodwinked. So, as is always the case, don't take my word for it. Do your own research and come to your own determination. But we'll be talking about the deeper agenda here. We've been talking about it in some cases for a decade plus. But you know, what is interesting is that the leadership of Extinction Rebellion do not want to talk about 5G. They do not want to talk about geoengineering. They want to keep you focused on this ethereal climate change. They can't even discuss the components which they believe make up this climate change. Yet, you know, I think we're all agreed that we do have a corporatist issue to deal with, and a big part of that is the rampant pollution. So if you're concerned about the component elements, then obviously you target the root cause of those component elements, which is why the community activism fighting fracking has been so successful, because it has targeted a component element, i.e. pollution. But no, Extinction Rebellion don't want to deal with components. They want to deal with the ethereal morass, but without providing any template for dealing with it. And you notice that, you know, they can't actually hold a conversation without trotting out the tired rhetoric. And you hear 12 years, 1.5 degrees, rising sea levels. You know, yeah, climate is changing, but it ain't changing for the reasons that you're being told. And the reason you're being told is so that you can be taxed to a greater level. And, you know, I've been talking for 15 years about the construct of peak oil, you know, which was first mooted back in 1957. That it was mooted to create the perception of artificial scarcity. And basically, if anyone is still in the belief that oil is a scarce resource, then just take a look around the world. In fact, in the US, there are over now 2,000 drilled wells, but not completed. Why are they not completed? Because basically the companies know fine well that if they do start to bring that online, then it will lead the price to fall, because it will create a glut. So I know the vast majority of people watching this will do their own research. The vast majority of people watching this live stream are capable of independent critical thought. Of course, there's a few that aren't, and all they want to do is push the construct, the official narrative, which, as I'm sure you're realizing, does not have your or my best interests at heart. So on that note, I'm going to get back and finish the preparation for AV10. I'm really excited about this conference. I think this is the most eclectic group of speakers that we have had. And of course, the real element of the AV events is not so much perhaps the speakers, it's the catalyst to bring people together. And this is the core objective, is to bring together like-minded people who have the determination to do what is right for future generations. And I can absolutely categorically state that people at AV will not agree on everything. It is not a cult. I encourage debate, and we embrace that diversity. It's important to recognize that, you know, it is okay to disagree. What's important is that we keep our focus on the things that we do agree upon. That's where we bring about change, and then through discussion and debate we address the issues that perhaps we may not agree upon right now. So it's going to be a great weekend, and I'm really looking forward to the atmosphere of AV. And let me tell you, of course, there's an enormous amount of work that goes into it, and nobody's more relieved when it goes off without a hitch. Oh, I'm not tempting fate, touch wood. When it goes off without a hitch, and I can settle down to the dinner on Monday evening in the knowledge that some 300 plus people have had a great weekend, and what's most important is they've had the opportunity to network with like-minded people. So don't forget, tomorrow, if you're in the northeast, it's the Moot Hall in Newcastle to see, hopefully, justice prevail, and Gateshead get an instruction from the judge to do what they should be doing as part of the democratic process, which is addressing the concerns of their electorate. But don't hold your breath. Meanwhile, I will be back with a live stream on Friday morning, and I'll be doing it from the secret garden at the Horwood House Hotel. So catch you then. You take care now, and see you on Friday morning.